Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of the Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 4. And there's all the contributors, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Buscema, etc. And there's all the covers, all the various covers from issue 94. And it contains Fantastic Four 94 to 125, as well as the Lost Adventure as well. Now, it's a lovely sturdy book, and you can see there the spine. I know people love to see the spine, so they can see that. Now there's 816 pages, obviously colour throughout. That's a few pages obviously of black and white, but I think it's absolutely lovely. But let's just quickly go through the book as I scrunch up the cover just to ruin it completely. Oh well, doesn't matter. He says, looking at it, nice tear in it. However, there's actually some slight marks already I noticed on there. So that's the Fantastic Four Omnibus there, and you can see now they're obviously going for that slight variation on the spine now, which is slightly, and also the change there as well. Let's go through the book itself. And you can see there, Fantastic Four Omnibus, and I better move that out of the way before I crunch it even more. And you can see all the various lists of all the people, inkers, letterers, etc. And of course this is by Michael Keller. Don't know his name, don't say his name right, and Kellustration. So you can see there the people have restored it, and I think it's an absolutely superb restoration. Also there's the usual articles there by Stan Lee. Unfortunately, of course, many obviously are 2006, of course Stan Lee's dead now, but still they're always quite a long time ago. But anyway, actually in some ways it would be nice if there was a lot more articles, all perhaps from the period itself, so that would have been even more interesting. There's the first one, Frightful Four. I love the Frightful Four. I wish the Frightful Four would turn up more often, but of course they don't. So, but I always loved the Wizard, Sandman, and the Trapster, or Paste Pot Pete, one of my favourites. You got the Wizard there. Why he never uses his Wonder Gloves always baffles me, because he was a pretty powerful guy with the Wonder Gloves, but he never uses them. In most of the adventures, of course, you got Paste Pot Pete with his now green glue going out there. She's looking a bit rough there, isn't he? Sort of looks like he could do with a few good night's sleep there. But anyway, what's his mask? Anyway, whatever. No, it isn't there. I love the way that, of course, God, this is the first appearance of a certain person that's become, of course, very popular with the TV series now. Fantastic Four fan pages, you can't beat those. And this is one of the reasons I love these omnibus. They're always just great to read these. Even though the quality of the, you can see that as well. If you look at it, it's a slightly rough. It's never obviously as sharp as the actual thing. Obviously, I assume it's harder to restore. But it's still always great. The pictures are obviously always great. But it's just great reading the comments of people's at the time. And this one, World War III. However, just before I go any further with this, I just want to quickly point out the Epic Collection. Obviously, the Epic Collection, you can see slightly smaller, but it does actually cover quite a lot, a fair amount, because this contains obviously up to 104, so it doesn't contain all the way up to the... But it's still, there's a bit of an overlap. Anyway, I'm quite happy with that, and I love this one, the Epic Collection. And I've been mainly collecting the Epics, so I haven't really been collecting the omnibuses, so I thought, but I was impatient. I thought, I'm going to go for the omnibus. So I went for the omnibus, and I'm very happy. So I've got quite a lot of omnibuses, but I haven't got the Fantastic Four ones. And you've got another adventure there, obviously. Now, the stories were a bit iffy at times. I mean, the quality was up and down. I generally enjoyed quite a lot of these stories. I still think they're very decent, but Kirby did go for a lot of these big, I think personally unnecessary, massive panels there. And there you got 4, whereas in the past maybe you'd have had like 6, 8, whatever panels. You've just reduced it down to 4, and also it doesn't move the story in the same way, just flying off, and he's just going off, and there's a bit of and now I've reached the islands, etc., etc. And then you got another one, which I suppose is quite dramatic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't really. And now to find the stimulator, or whatever. Stimulator, even. Maybe we've been better as the simulator, whatever it was. But whatever it was. So you've got obviously great, still lovely artwork. And of course, at this point, we've got a lot of storyline with Crystal going off and the Black Bolt, and there's all a bit of a backstory there as well, which is quite good. Human Torch, which leads, of course, on to the later stuff with obviously Quicksilver, etc. So still, great little story. I was always slightly disappointed by that. I always thought Human Torch, Crystal, that would, to me, but that was, obviously wasn't to be. And then you got here Fantastic Four 100. And I loved that when it came out. I remember buying it, and it was, obviously now you look at it and think, well, it's not as good as it could have been. It could have been but at the time, to me, it was just brilliant. Wow, number 100, issue 100, and all these various villains all piling in. Of course, slightly there's a twist, of course, in the story, but you got Kang, which is always a bit odd considering that they never faced Kang as far as I recall. I mean, Kang did turn up one time in the story, but very briefly. And you got the Sentry, and you've got all the various, and then he sort of always to awaken him to life, and it's sort of that build up. But really, not. You got the hate monger and other. That's the answer. If only unto etc. But it's still a great story to bring all the various characters back. But it's nowhere as good as, say, the wedding issue, which I loved. Fantastic Four Annual number 3. Now this one I did generally is one of my favourites. And probably most people probably hate this story, but it was one that I loved because it was one of the very, very early old comics that I got. I know that sounds weird to say, but Fantastic 401, I picked that up very shortly after I bought my first comic. And to me, this was an old comic, Fantastic 401, and because it had a slightly different feel to it from, obviously, I was on issue 132 of Fantastic Four, so 101 was wow. I actually genuinely enjoyed the story, and it was good. Sort of the invasion, obviously, of takeover of the Baxter building. Been done a few times, I guess, but still, at the same time, I enjoyed that story. Now, this was a missed opportunity, I think, personally. One, it could have been a real classic story again. I mean, obviously, the Fantastic Four Annual number 1. You got the invasion, obviously, with Submariner, the strength of the Submariner, the monstrous menace of Magneto. And again, missed opportunity because at the end of the day you had, but I love the Crystal bits there and Sue and obviously the baby and everything else. But Magneto didn't really face the Fantastic Four in this. It was a lot of really sort of big scenes where he was sort of like that sort of thing. There was a lot of that, and it just never felt that it was Magneto in the way that I like Magneto with the X-Men. But it was a pity really because there's a lot standing around. There's like scene there. You're sort of standing there, sort of glaring a bit, and you think he's not doing anything. There's not really any sort of. There's a brief this sort of meeting of obviously Magneto and Sue Storm, which of course in many ways is pretty good because of all the powers. Probably they're equally matched with obviously the force field and all that sort of stuff and all the various things, invisibility. Of course, there is a weakness there, and you can guess that Magneto uses these features. However, let's get on to the next story. It's still a decent enough yarn, but it was just a missed opportunity. I thought it was great to have Magneto battle the Fantastic Four. Wasn't really that epic in the end. But you got here 105, Monster in the Streets. And again, you got lots of this. Now this, of course, now it's changing. John Romita. All changed, but it's still at the same time, you still got that feel of the Jack Kirby was still sort of there for my, but you had all the, was it running out of ideas? No, I don't think it was running out of ideas, but at the same time, there was a feeling of going over a bit of the old material a few times where you think, oh, I've seen this before a bit. I'll use my power like I never have. And it's sort of like, yeah. This is always one of my criticisms probably of the Fantastic Four or any of the characters is that, you know, you've got these powers. You'd think you'd spend, and I know I certainly would be spend your time practicing to the point of nth degree to work out what powers you have got and that to suddenly need them in certain things. And it, quite often when you look at the early Fantastic Four, they were really spending a lot of time discovering the various powers. And then after a while, it just ended up that they didn't really use them. They didn't explore them in the same way, personally, which is a pity. Other than Sue Storm, who obviously became more and more powerful over time, whereas the others sort of just seemed stuck, especially Reed Richards. You think that, especially Plastic Man always comes to mind. And now the Thing. And again, you got, of course, the build up to a classic. There's, well, this one. Actually, again, that was another very early story that I had, and I remember getting it, but I didn't realise all the backstory that was associated with it. There's a lot of backstory, and that's right at the back. There's some, obviously, black and white work there, and that was good. But it's a pity in many ways that there wasn't more backstories of other stories back in the, say, the issues 30, 40, etc., with that sort of thing, where stories sort of were started but never finished. And it would have been really nice to have seen those. They must have done this sometimes, must have started on stories and then realised, you know what, we're not going anywhere with this, and then just gets tucked away. It's a pity that they're never, maybe that didn't happen, I don't know, but that would seem weird. But again, just really brilliant story. Of course, you've got the negative zone. Negative zone's always good. And of course, I love always the adverts as well. Conan issue 4, brilliant. You got Annihilus again there. The thing amok. I should say runs amok maybe, but amok. Face their most dreaded disaster. No less. Oh, and the Hulk versus Thing. Now they're always epics, of course. Hulk versus the Thing, and always. Personally, I think the Hulk will always win. The Hulk is clearly stronger. I'm certain that people say, oh no, the Thing's stronger. But anyway, that was an unusual one. Again, another Iron Man advert there. And then you're on to another story. You've got the Hulk, sort of, obviously Bruce Banner sort of disappearing. And you've got the Inhumans. And this one, Overmind story. That was good in many ways. But it was a bit sort of like there was a feeling of Mangog, the stranger sort of thing. It was just a bit odd, personally, but I genuinely, and also it mixes in with other things, the Eternals. So obviously, clearly there was this idea the Eternals come to Gigantus. Gigantus, really? Would anyone call their planet Gigantus? That's, but I guess if you've got a planet that's super massively large, wouldn't that just turn into a gas giant? However, but anyway. All those sort of things, possibly. Maybe it doesn't. Certainly in the comic universe, it doesn't. You can have a world that's 60 times bigger than the Earth, but it would never have a problem of those sort of things. How does the world? And you've obviously got there Doc Doom. That was good. Loved the little mix, but again, wasn't used in the way. In many ways, they could have done a lot more with those storylines. Now falls. This one is Doc Doom, obviously there. Dr. Doom. Your courage is admirals. I'll say he's actually. No. Is that really Dr. Doom? I have never seen him do that. That is odd. I did not know that Dr. Doom smoked. Really? Sorry, a man of... No. Oh, I just don't know. That's just wrong. Maybe it was vaping. Who knows? But you got Crystal there and Diablo. Poor old Diablo. Always a bit of a loser, that character. And this one's a weird one, T'Challa's story as well. So you've got T'Challa there. And Gabriel. Yeah. That was a bit of a, to me, not as good as it could have been, personally, the Galactus story. A bit of a disappointment, because Galactus, again, it's what's happened is that you've gone from like, whatever it's, 48, 49, etc., those issues where Galactus, like, is super powerful, destroy the world in seconds, and now he gets reduced to basically falling over when the Thing hits him. Really, why is it always happens with this thing? You've got characters that in the first appearance are always super powerful, and then subsequently they just seem to lose all their abilities and they become pretty useless. I mean, they like threaten to destroy his ship. Really? I mean, sorry, couldn't he just recreate the ship instantaneously? Why would he worry about if you destroy the ship? It's just a sort of like with its powers, he should be able to recreate it instantaneously. And why is it there anyway? Why is it just... Surely it would be on the other edge of the universe because hasn't he got transport? I don't know. Anyway, always never understood that sort of thing. But you got this story on Monster's Secret. And again, good little stories. I loved the Buscema's artwork. It was, and I enjoyed. This was about the sort of time when I started to pick up quite a few Fantastic Four issues, and I enjoyed that one. I enjoyed this Monster one as well. Though now, not so great personally. However, you got some, of course, extras at the back. You can't beat a few extras. You got here the 95. You got Fantastic Four unused cover. You know what? I don't think I've ever seen that one, and I can see why they changed their mind with that one because it's not very good cover, personally. I mean, I suppose if you want to emphasise the building, it's pretty good. But I mean, the villains there. I mean, poor old Wizard and that lot. You can hardly see them, and you got the Fantastic Four sort of like hovering. It looks like a car just going flying through the sky there. Personally, very unusual cover, so I can see that why they would have dropped that one. Sometimes you can't. I sometimes look at these, covers that they could have used, and you think, why? However, that just as I pull that, you might have noticed just here a little bit. there was an awful lot of static with this one. I got this, and this was the worst I have ever had for this, and I thought it was all stuck together. When I got this book, I thought, what? Literally every page I had to peel apart. And it was like all the way through. It took about an hour of good sort of going through every page, carefully making certain that it didn't. Yeah, still some of it's still stuck in there. And you've got another original covers. I love original covers, of course. Always good. And these ones are always great. I wish they would put more of these in. These reprint ones. I genuinely always love them including these reprints, with Spider-Man, whatever, any of these reprint ones. Because sometimes they always made variant covers. And you think, oh, that's a sometimes better cover than the original. Well, not sometimes. But it's they're often they're just fascinating to see, just the variations, the way they just... And these are quite spectacular as well. You've got some lovely covers there. But this is just a lovely book. This was a real brilliant period of Fantastic Four as far as I was concerned. I absolutely love this volume. I'm really, really happy I got this one. And I've thoroughly enjoyed many of the stories. Some of them I haven't looked at for ages. I have not looked... I mean, I've obviously got the Epic, but this, like I say, this goes only up to issue 104. So some of the later stories, 120, 121, etc., I haven't read as often for good 30, 40 years. And so it's nice to actually just go through them again and think, oh, that wasn't too bad. Some were iffy, but still, I liked it. I'm really glad I got this volume, and I'm going to, obviously, now I don't, whether I, oh, that's a nasty dent there as well. I noticed that. However, I don't know if I'm going to get volume 5. I suspect as I always do, I always say, no, I'm not going to get volume 5, not going to get volume 5, but I probably will. So when it comes out, I'm certain I will look for it. But yeah, really pleased with that, and I will just bring the cover back. Again, like I say, always like to take those off while I'm doing this. So there's the... Now that's just, I think, a spectacular cover. Now that's Arthur Adams, I think, isn't it? Arthur Adams. If it isn't, my apologies for that. But it's still pretty amazing. And there's some of the characters in it, I'm a bit surprised. Like Super Skrull. I don't think Super Skrull appeared in the book, so slightly odd, but anyway, maybe he did. Mr. Impossible again there, and other characters as well. Obviously the Mad Thinker there, Mole Man, obviously, yeah, Hate Monger. But they've also got, I love all the Mole Man's army just down there. That's quite good as well. I love the way he's used that, and obviously the Hulk there, very dramatic. And of course Claw, etc., Diablo. It's just a great cover. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Totally recommended.